restrictions. European countries are continuing to take extraordinary steps to try and stop the spread of the coronavirus. Measures on a scale not seen before in peacetime are coming into force. In Spain, there's a nationwide partial lockdown for the next 15 days, while in France, all cafes, restaurants, cinemas and most shops have been ordered to remain shut. This report from Rich Preston.
3 of Europe's biggest economies have imposed national lockdowns. Spain is Europe's second worst hit country, with more than 190 deaths and over 6,300 infections, and has now declared a state of emergency. Public gatherings are banned and most shops and businesses are closed. Cafes and restaurants will only be able to carry out home deliveries. For the next 2 weeks, people have been told to stay at home unless they're going to work or to buy food or medicine. Begoña Gomez, the wife of the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, and pictured here with her husband last year, has tested positive for the virus. On the streets, cheers of support for health staff, going to work and caring for the sick. At the stroke of midnight, sweeping new restrictions came into force across France. Public places described as non-essential forcibly shut, including cinemas, cafes and nightclubs. The traditional French bistro, an integral part of the country's cultural identity, closed. More than 90 people in France have now died from coronavirus, and authorities say this is the only way to prevent mass fatalities.
J'ai conscience des efforts et des sacrifices.
I am aware of the efforts and sacrifices that are required, and I have confidence in the ability of French men and women to understand the seriousness of the moment and to adopt together the civic, responsible and supportive behaviour which will enable us to overcome this crisis.
Despite the lockdown, local elections are going ahead. The Prime Minister calling for people to come out and vote, but to do so sensibly and keep a safe distance from others. Italy remains Europe's worst-hit country, with over 1,400 deaths. Its national lockdown has been in place for nearly a week, but the number of cases and fatalities keeps rising. On Friday, the World Health Organization said Europe was now the epicentre of the COVID-19 outbreak, a virus which started in China and which in just 10 weeks has spread around the world and killed thousands of people. Rich Preston, BBC News.
Well, one of the world's largest airlines, American Airlines, is to cut 3/4 of its international flights because of the disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The reduction will begin on Monday and continue until May the 6th. American says the changes will mean parking almost its entire wide-body fleet, about 135 aircraft. Short-haul flights will continue as scheduled. Simon Jones has more.
Well, if you want a sign of how badly coronavirus is affecting the airline industry, look no further. The announcement made by American Airlines that it's grounding 75% of its flights because really demand has dropped so much and there are travel bans around the world. So it's saying it's going to concentrate on short-haul flights, and most of its long-haul flights are going to be axed. So for example, here Heathrow Terminal 3, it's a base for American Airlines, but we're told there's only going to be a couple of flights a day. And of course, British people won't be allowed to get on those flights to go to the US, where those flights are heading, because there has been a ban on people from Europe travelling to the US.
Simon Jones there. The White House doctor has said President Trump has tested negative for coronavirus. He underwent the check days after hosting a meeting with the Brazilian president, at least 4 of whose entourage have been infected. The capital city of the Philippines has declared a state of calamity due to the coronavirus outbreak. Around 13 million people living in metropolitan Manila are under strict new rules set by the government. The country has 140 confirmed cases and 11 deaths from COVID-19. Our reporter Howard Johnson is in Manila.
Well, at the moment we're seeing that the streets here are incredibly quiet. Manila's normally this bustling, busy mega city where even today you could hear lots of noise coming up from the shopping malls underneath my building here. But no, at the moment it's completely quiet, and that means that people are staying in their houses. We went to the southern border of Manila to look at the traffic coming and going. It was quite light actually. Lots of people have left this city already. There are some concerns that because this was announced on Thursday that the lockdown would happen on Saturday night at midnight, that a lot of people left in the 2-day grace period. So there is also concern that maybe COVID-19 has been spread around the rest of the country as a result of this slow quarantine, or community quarantine as they're calling this lockdown. President Duterte calls it a lockdown, but as we saw today, it's a soft lockdown because on that border, people weren't being stopped from leaving if they had a good reason to leave, and if they weren't showing a temperature above 38 degrees, they were allowed to leave. So at the moment we're seeing people getting used to this new norm, as people say, trying to get used to living under these conditions. Also, a curfew will take place in many parts of the city tonight from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Howard Johnson there. In other developments, anyone visiting Australia will have to quarantine for 2 weeks following an announcement by Prime Minister Scott Morrison. Austria is to close all of its restaurants and ban gatherings of more than 5 people. The Austrian public have also been asked to self-isolate. The Republic of Congo has reported its first case of coronavirus. A 50-year-old man who arrived from Paris has tested positive. The president of Kazakhstan has declared a state of emergency in the country and restricted people from entering or leaving it. And Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque and Dome of the Rock will shut their doors as a precaution against the virus. Just before we go, take a look at these pictures from Denver in the United States, where long queues formed at a drive-through coronavirus testing facility. So far, 7 US states have set up such stations, and as you can tell, they are pretty popular. On Friday, President Trump said that the administration was looking to open up more of these facilities. The idea is to expand testing capacity, something that's been proved to work in South Korea, and also to better protect healthcare workers from exposure to the virus.